Welcome back. Later this week, you may be opening the first door on your Advent calendar. Many people believe that it's the only time of the year when eating chocolate before breakfast is acceptable. The average Briton eats over 7.5 kilos of chocolate every year, and apparently only Switzerland, Austria, Germany and Ireland consume more per capita than we do. Eating chocolate is associated with feeling happy. A study in 1996 showed that eating chocolate causes the release of endorphins in the brain. David Greenwood-Haig is an international chocolatier, and he joins me now. How lovely to see you. Welcome.
Good morning.
Beautifully attired, but tell me about that in just a moment. Do you buy this chemical explanation about the pleasure of chocolate, or is it just that it tastes great?
No, I think there's a much research been proven. It's got 1,500 different aromas. It's got dozens of antioxidants and endorphins that release in the brain. It's been around for 5,500 years. So the ancients knew all about it, and that's the reason they took it, because it wasn't pleasant. It was a medicine that you took for the benefits it gave you.
Very interesting. I've often worked with chocolatiers and indeed chefs who wear a jacket like yours, but I've never seen a jacket so beautifully decorated, embroidered. Tell me about the origin of this.
I've just had 3 weeks in Ghana working with some cocoa farmers, teaching them to make chocolate and indeed teaching them how to taste like we're going to do today. And as part of that, they wanted to change my jacket to prove that I was Ghanaian. They said I was a white Ghanaian, and they wanted to decorate with kente cloth, so they've adorned my jacket with kente.
Very interesting. So there's clearly an important ethical element around the production of chocolate. It mainly does come now from West Africa, does it?
70% of the world's cocoa is produced in West Africa. Côte d'Ivoire is 40% and about 20-some% from Ghana. And then you've got Nigeria up and coming, who aim to be the second largest producer by the end of next year.
And when we eat or drink chocolate, should we be worried about the conditions of the people who produced it?
Absolutely, we should. It needs to be the prime reason for our decision. It seems immoral that I can buy a 30p bar of chocolate in some of our retailers, and I can't send you a letter from Wakefield to London for 30p, but I can bring cocoa halfway around the world for that. So I think if we've only paid 30p, then somebody hasn't been paid fairly in that mix.
And what is being done about that?
There are groups around the world now. So Fair Trade is one group that are doing some lots of work. There are the direct cocoa industry now. We've got makers all across the UK and across Europe who are buying cocoa beans direct from farmers, paying them directly. And that the best way to ensure farmers have got more money is to put the money in their hand. There are sometimes 15 people between the consumer and the farmer, and that isn't good because they all add a margin and the farmer gets less and less. And
if I understood you correctly, you're trying to change uneducated workers into educated entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. 82% of a cocoa pod is waste. And if we bought the whole pod, because we only buy the bean and we leave them with all the waste, then we would absolutely reduce that 82% and try and commercialise it. So I'm teaching cocoa farmers to commercialise that and make cocoa vinegar, cocoa juice, cold pressed cocoa, cocoa butter that they can use pharmaceutically, cosmetically, and for cooking.
As a fuel?
Some as a fuel, but some as a product to eat and to sell locally, not to rely on the economic north, but to sell it to their neighbours, because they're currently importing cocoa drink, hot chocolate from Switzerland. I won't mention the brand, and they could just go outside and make it. So I'm saying, look, but no one had bothered to teach them to make it because it didn't concern us. We only wanted the bean, and we just left them.
Now, is Britain a country taken seriously in the world of chocolate?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I'm slightly surprised because I remember in the days when we were in the European Union, one of our leading manufacturers, its product was not described as chocolate. It had to change its name away from chocolate. But we do have chocolate makers.
We have fantastic chocolate makers. Certainly in the new bean to bar movement, you remember we had the craft brewery movement and we had the craft coffee house movement with Starbucks led. So all of a sudden we all know about Robusta and Arabica and those things. And we didn't about chocolate because the big manufacturers want to put it all in one big vat, blend it, and you don't know the difference. And a friend of mine in Cleethorpes called Duffy was listening to the news, Radio 4, on his way home one day, and he heard this story about chocolate, and he thought, I could do that. And he used to work in the motorsport industry, so he understood engineering. And he went home, made some chocolate, and he's now multi-award-winning chocolate maker based in Cleethorpes, the place that you wouldn't have thought was the centre for excellence of cocoa. And he's making amazing chocolate from all over the world. He's paying farmers directly and making sure it's right.
Very good news. Now, you brought in about 9 or 10 jars. What should we do with them?
Well, I send a kit out. I have a tasting kit that I teach people. Next week, I've got 16 people from LA who are doing an online tasting with me, and I've mailed out these kits.
Let's have a look.
And in these kits, we have 6 different chocolate samples.
Beautifully packaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eventually we're going to get some chocolate. These things here, are they?
Yeah, these sachets have got different origins in. So if you look on the bottom, it'll say Peru or it'll say Madagascar. And I then meet them together and we go through a sensory tasting, a little bit like you would with wine, whiskey or coffee. And that's what I'm going to plan to do with these in front. I've got some African chocolates, I've got some West Indian chocolate, and I've got some South American chocolate. So we can start with these, and you'll be able to try the pack later. But there's also a guide within that.
Where should we start?
Can I get you to start at 70% Ghanaian?
Yes.
So we're going to look, touch, listen, smell and taste.
Right.
So you're already touching. Can I get you to put it down for a second?
What, even with the packaging on?
Absolutely, yeah, with the packaging. So the first thing we would do is if you were going to buy wine from the store, you wouldn't have done what you just did then. You would have picked the bottle up, you'd turn it around, you'd read the label. You would have recognised from the shape of the bottle what was in it. A Chianti would have a wicker, rattan, etc. But with chocolate, we all know it's square, so we just say, that's chocolate, let's open it, put it in our mouths.
Correct.
And if you do that, all you'll get from the chocolate is the energy, the sugar. So I'm going to try...
you certainly caught me out.
Sorry. I did this for the Archbishop of Canterbury several years ago, and by the time we'd got to the eating part, he'd eaten all 6 pieces of his chocolate. So there's not much information on this, but if we were to turn one of these around, you'll see there's a West African 100%. It would tell you that whether it's fair trade, organic. What you've got there is kosher, halal, and vegan chocolate, so it's dairy-free.
David, we've only got a very short moment left, and I think the viewers expect us to taste something.
Yeah. So that you look at the chocolate, it should be smooth and shiny, and then if you now run your finger across the top, that should be nice and dry, and it shouldn't be bloomed. You sometimes see, and then smell it, and
my goodness, the aroma is fantastic.
To release those aromas, and then if you hold it next to your ear and just snap. That will give you the crisp ring to tell you that the chocolate's been tempered properly, and that's a good indication. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pinch your nose, so you put one piece of chocolate down, pinch your nose, put the chocolate onto your tongue, close your mouth, move your tongue to the roof of your mouth and start it melting. All you'll taste is sweet, and now release your nose, open your mouth and gently breathe in. And all of a sudden it should go from sweet to interesting, so you'll start to release those flavours. And you'll get, there's 1,500 aromas in chocolate. Wine has 700, beer has about 600. So it's really complex. And as you breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose, you involve your olfactory bulb, and all of a sudden you get more experience of those other aromas in there. And you should get things like oaky or red berries. But I try not to tell people what to taste because our palates are individual.
Oh, but does it take a while to learn to be a taster of chocolate?
Yeah. Absolutely, okay. Yeah. And sometimes I judge in the International Chocolate Awards and the Academy of Chocolate Awards, and you can taste 100 chocolates in a day.
A wonderful job, and you must have a really extraordinary palate. Well, David Greenwood-Haig, many thanks. Thanks to all my guests who've come in today and joined me down the line. Join me again next week, please, when I shall be exploring taxis and the science of happiness, amongst other things. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Alistair Stewart is next. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy and damp in the southeast.